What's going on, Channel 12 fam? It's your boy, the 12th letter. Getting ready to head over here to the sheriff's station. I just saw a motorcycle sheriff and an SUV pull up out of here. I wanted to come over here to see if I'm able to get a few shots of their vehicles. We're gonna walk over here and see if there's any no trespassing signs. I do see one sign. It says off limits to unauthorized personnel. So they do have the correct sign up, which means I won't be able to get back there and take a look at their cars. Unfortunately. Because what we do is respect all signs. There's one vehicle over here. This is an old truck right here. I would really like to get back there and take a look at their vehicles. Hopefully they'll see me out here and they'll come ask that famous question. Can I help you? You absolutely can. Let me take a look at your trucks. This is the sign I was telling you about. It says off limits to unauthorized personnel. But let's see if this truck is going to stop and ask me what I'm doing. Oklahoma Sheriff's Office. We got one car coming out here right now.
Have you been helped yet? Do you need any directions? I know sometimes they're hard to find.
No, actually, if I could take a look at your cars back here, I would really appreciate that.
Well, I know those guys are kind of weird about people walking around their cars.
Somebody can escort with me. Somebody can walk with me.
I go over there with this, no problem. Let me let this motorcycle around here.
Sure thing, sure thing. Okay, cool. I think that's pretty cool. See, it doesn't hurt to ask. It doesn't hurt to ask at all. But we will wait for him to come out here and escort us. We won't just go over there and cross the line without him saying it's okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Not a problem.
I was not expecting an invitation, so thank you. My name is L.
All right, Al, I'm Bradley Wynn. Nice to meet you. Yeah,
All
sure.
right.
These are public vehicles. You're more than welcome to take a look at them.
Okay, thank you. I saw that sign, only authorized personnel, so.
But that's usually after night, after closing hours and stuff. So when the gates close, it
Okay.
lets us say, hey, when someone's in there, we know they climbed the fence. Or
Right.
hey, you're not supposed to be in here after hours.
Right,
So
right, okay.
we don't have a way of keeping an eye on things,
Uh-huh.
like we do during the day.
Yeah, and I don't want nobody getting spooked because I'm
Sure.
back here watching. I'm glad that you asked me, and I'm glad that you invited me back here, so I do appreciate it.
Your needs are being met. If you have any questions, I'll try and answer them to the best of my ability.
Okay. So, what is the longest time that you guys keep these cars in service?
Well, we've entered an entirely different program. We are actually replacing our current fleet.
Oh, really?
Which is pretty old.
So you guys are going to put them up for auction?
So we have been auctioning them off, yes. And so they've been going back to the public. If it's something that can't be auctioned, a lot of our vehicles are in pretty bad shape, so they wind up having to be scrapped.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but these are vehicles starting back from 2017 up. So
Well,
it's going to take some time.
if you want to just give me one, I was glad to take one off your hands.
Sure.
What I usually do is I go to all the police stations, county-owned vehicles, and what I do is I run a social media network and a social media channel, and I videotape the county-owned cars, see if they're in bad shape, if they're in good shape, see if the tires are, properly, inflated, that type of things. But the one thing I don't want to do is spook somebody, so that's why I respect all signs and all that stuff.
We are replacing all of our vehicles. So my vehicle there is an older one. It's what we call a pool car.
A pool car, okay.
And that was kind of the state of what many of our vehicles look like. And you're welcome to
With
look at it.
the chip paint.
Well, it's graphics on the side. So over time, weather, sun, etc., kind of beats it up. The paint itself is fine, but the graphics themselves are pretty poor. So that's why it's a pool car. It's not something that's normally driven around.
Right.
All of our vehicles that we drive around are clearly marked or in a design that they're supposed to be. So the unmarked vehicle you see are investigator type vehicles.
Okay.
Yeah. So otherwise, this is our new vehicle.
Yeah, that looks nice too.
What all of our fleet would look like. So it's well marked, great tires.
It looks real good. It looks real good.
Our guys are really doing their best to take care of them.
Got the cowboy hat in there, I see. Can I ask you a personal question?
Okay.
Feel free to not answer if you don't want to. What do you feel about that thin blue line flag that goes?
So that blue line flag, and I don't know how well you're going to be able to hear me because of the generator here.
Right.
But the thin blue line flag is something that's clearly misunderstood. So first we need to back up to see what the thin blue line itself represents. Let's walk away.
Solidarity, right?
Yeah, let's walk away from the generator so you can hear me well.
Yeah, let's go over here.
Otherwise you're not going to be able to hear the answer very
Right,
well.
right, okay.
So first let's go back to the color blue. Why do we have the color blue, right?
Thin blue line.
So
right?
no.
No?
There's actually a history for this.
Okay.
So the very first police department.
You don't mind if I get you
that's
up
fine.
there?
That's
Okay.
fine. The very first police agency in the United States was in Boston about 1863.
Okay.
And at that time they didn't have police uniforms, so they used surplus Union uniforms, which were the blue tunics with the gold buttons on them, right?
Okay, yeah, I
And so
remember
New
those.
York City eventually adopted that, etc. So that color blue kind of stuck with policing as the decades went on. So
Okay.
policing itself is kind of young. And so because of the popular color of blue, right, many police agencies adopted that color for their own uniforms as history would progress. Blue shirts, blue pants. NYPD is a perfect example.
Right.
All of their uniforms are blue.
Right.
LAPD, all of their uniforms are dark navy blue.
Okay.
So the thin blue line concept comes from this. In order to be a really good cop, you've got to understand how the other side of that equation works. You got to know how criminals think, right?
Okay.
But what that means is that police officers too have to be very careful because we understand that that's a thin line because we know how criminals operate. So it's a thin line that we could easily cross over if we ourselves are not holding ourselves to a better standard, right?
Okay.
So the idea of a thin blue line is a remembrance, or I'm sorry, not remembrance the word, is a reminder to police officers that thin blue line, that's you guys, the police officers. We don't want you crossing that line. but we do want you to hold that line from those other things that we know that can easily cross over onto the good side of things and do harm.
Okay.
So that's why it's called a thin blue line. Is simply because it's more of a reminder to policing, and why police officers adopt that more is a reminder that, hey, we're holding a line of honor and integrity, right? And we're trying to prevent something bad from the bad side of that line from coming over to the good side.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
it does. Now, how do you feel about some of the people that, the bad apples, that are killing unarmed civilians? You know what I'm saying? A lot of that's been going on, and let's talk about what they call the insurrection, January 6th. How do you feel about that flag flying right next to Confederate battle flags and that Trump flag?
So each individual has their own adaptation of how they're going to use symbols, right? We know from growing up in school that a Betsy Ross flag, for example, was a representative of an early American republic, right?
Right.
One of America's first flags.
Yeah.
Someone chose to use that flag in that particular moment, in that particular way, as a symbol of their hate, not as hate in general. Okay. And that is the same when it comes to anything else. You could turn anything into a symbol of hate, right? We know that the Nazis did that with a religious symbol.
Right, with the flag, with the star, right?
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Which turned something that meant something good into something now that means something bad, right?
Right.
So I think that's at each individual's heart, right, and the way that they're going to do things.
Okay.
So that's all I could say about an insurrection in regards to the flag.
I also heard that the alt-right is walking around with that flag also.
See, I don't have those kinds of details. What I try to do is be a good person myself and encourage others to be good people too, right? And the individuals themselves, and that's what we have to remember, they're the ones who choose to do the wrong or do the hate, right? And whatever weapon or symbol they choose to do that with, we have to understand that rests on the individual's head. That doesn't mean that a whole society of people. And the same thing to answer your question when it comes to the idea of police brutality.
Yeah.
So let me answer it with a few questions of my own. How many police officers are in the United States right now?
I have no idea.
So just under 800,000 police officers police the United States. That's total.
Okay.
Right?
Under a million.
Under 800,000.
Oh, wow.
How many people live in the United States?
321 million?
Pretty close, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you only have less than 800,000 police officers policing over 300 million U.S. citizens, correct?
Okay.
So that's pretty crazy. So when we look at numbers of police brutality, you're talking about almost 1 million folks for every police officer, right?
Right.
That's pretty tough, right?
Yeah.
So as any profession, there are always going to be bad apples. Now, what makes on the policing side stand out more is because we are held to a higher standard, or we should hold ourselves to a higher standard. I am proud to say that my agency does that. We are a great family here. We know each other. We hold each other accountable. We help each other the best way that we can. We help our community and invest in our community, and we help other agencies the best way that we can. And we get that in return. We don't have a lot of the problems that you might see because we have a really great family and have a really great leadership as well, and we have a really great command staff. So I can only speak on behalf of my own agency. I'm fortunate to work with some who we don't have those bad apples.
Right.
And we really help one another out and take care of our own.
I have a problem. I mean, I'm glad you explained what you did. I have a little problem with that flag because, like I said, of who I personally seen
We're talking about
that thin blue line flag, and that flag is being flown over the Dale City Police Station.
Okay, so understand the history of how that flag came to be, right? There was no hate associated with its creation.
Not when it started.
Right.
But now,
like with
a lot of people have...
Right. But do you think Dale City is flying that flag because of hate?
Oh, I think he's racist. I absolutely think that chief of police is racist.
Okay. Well, as far as I'm concerned, the thin blue line flag represents something else, as I described earlier. But there's always going to be individuals who choose anything if that's what they want a symbol of hate to be. But it doesn't mean that it in and of itself is a symbol of hate.
Right. I was trying to explain to him, I said, why are you guys over here having 4 units to go after a guy that was dumpster diving?
That's not.
I said, that's not a crime. He said, it is a crime. I said, no, crime requires a victim.
Well,
and I said,
will say that in most cities there are ordinances against dumpster diving,
right,
believe it or not, because of the dangers inherent in that. For example, a trash truck driver may not see something in a dumpster, right?
Right.
When they scoop it up.
Right.
And they don't want to create any kind of injuries. And it also, a lot of larger dumpsters are on private properties, and so some of the private properties, like think of an apartment complex,
right,
try to hold down litigation of someone getting injured on something that may be in that dumpster. Does that make sense?
Right.
So, however somebody responds to it, I mean, I'm not there for that, but in many cases, dumpster diving is illegal because of safety factors.
Right. Okay. I'm glad you explained that. I want to say, out of all the interviews I have done with law enforcement, you're one of the best ones so far.
Well, we don't have anything to hide. We're more than,
sometimes they come out here with attitudes. What you doing? Get away from my car. And I'm like, wait a minute, bro. Hold up. Don't talk to me like that.
I will say the police officers tend to be paranoid because of the job that we do. We tend to meet people at their worst instead of their best, right?
Right.
Firemen, first responders, of that note, tend to meet people at their best. We just don't. Most of the time that we're called to somewhere, it's after something bad has already happened.
Right.
And so that's where we pick it up. And so you have to understand that sometimes police officers too tend to work in such a way where they have to hold their emotions in check all the time, right? You can't be making decisions on emotions, right?
Right, exactly.
But over time, that has a caustic effect, right? That can build up and build up. And unfortunately, there are some who can't handle that. And sometimes it pops. And they may do the wrong thing, like holding someone down on their neck. Right. I'm not giving any defense for it. Right. But I'm saying that can be an explanation for why sometimes things like that happen. So one of the things that we try to encourage, especially within our own agency, is to talk to people. Don't be afraid to talk to people and to talk to one another, or talk to your spouses, things like that. Kind of get out. Don't hold those things in. Right. But I can understand where some of that may come from, the attitudes and such.
Yeah.
And of course, they're trying to protect their equipment and stuff. We have vandals all the time doing whatever.
Let me ask you this, but how often would you see somebody coming out with a camera to victimize the police department? You gonna put yourself on camera, you gonna record your own?
Oh, there's lots of things that people do these days, but I'm just here to make sure that you got what you needed and answer any questions you may have.
And I do appreciate that. Thank you very much. So this is what you was talking about as far as
it's just older graphics and the materials that it was made out of at the time. And this car is from 2009, so you can imagine how long it's been on there. And Oklahoma sun beats down and tears up everything.
Especially this summer, right?
And this is just the graphics. The vehicle itself is in fine shape.
In good shape, okay.
But this is just the graphics. But they're in such a way that we can't take them off. It just destroy the paint too. But this is a pool car. It's not something that's out on the road like our everyday vehicles, which you were able to video earlier.
So if you was to take this car and put it in the auction, they would have to, sandblast it off, or?
Yeah, the graphics would be scraped off, or however they remove graphics. I think they use a heat gun.
Okay.
And heat them up and try and peel them off. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the graphics themselves would be removed. Any emergency equipment would be removed.
You mind if I get a look inside?
Sure, I'll let you. It's just a pool car.
Okay. No computer?
No, it's just a pool car.
Yeah.
It's not used for traffic.
Yeah, but I figured maybe they still might have it on there just in case.
No, we actually try to be conscious of the way that we spend money. Under this new administration, it's really well managed. And so we don't have excess of things that we don't need.
Okay. So no asking for tanks?
No.
Battering rams?
We don't have any tanks.
Let me add,
battering rams.
I got a question for you. This always irks the mess out of me.
Okay.
They doing these raids. I'm not saying sheriff. I'm just saying police in general. They do these raids. They do these 3 o'clock in the morning raids. They go in and they shoot the person that's sleeping, or they had just startled to wake up, right? They shoot them. Why not use rubber bullets? You going in there, you know you're going to startle somebody. Why not use rubber bullets so you don't kill somebody?
Well, first off, I can't comment on something that I wasn't a part of.
Right.
Our agency certainly wasn't a part of that. As far as the idea of using rubber bullets, so the distance between you and me is pretty close, right?
Right.
The distance between you and me here is still pretty close,
Right.
A rubber bullet would still cause just as much harm as probably a real bullet at those distances.
You think they would?
Absolutely.
You think they would die?
The chances are always there, regardless of the distance. Even the manufacturers state that there's always a risk using those types of equipment. Every agency has their own training and their own policies, just like our agency does. So I myself don't use rubber bullets, but
right.
I
What
can't
about
speak for others.
tasers?
All of our deputies are being trained or already carry tasers.
Okay.
Tasers are a less than lethal use of force. We try to use our minds and our mouths first, right? Clearly, we try to reach some sort of settlement prior to that. We don't want to use a taser. I have been personally tased, so I understand how it feels and what that subject would go through if they were to be tased. So that is a last minute thing I would ever want to do.
I think that's a training that you guys got to do. Everybody, if you're going to carry your taser, then you got to be tased.
And we train every year on that, and we work out scenarios and stuff. But again, we train where we use our minds, right, and our words. And a taser is one of the last things, like anything else, that we would want to go to, but it is a tool of the trade.
Okay.
It is less than lethal, and if you're trained properly in the use of that, and you deploy it properly, the chances of someone getting injured are much less.
What do you think about the Bolo wrap? Have you seen those?
The Bolo app?
Bolo wrap.
Oh, Bolo
it's
wrap.
like you shooting it at that person, at the subject,
I know what you're talking
and it
about.
wraps around them.
I know what you're talking about. I don't know enough about that technology. I don't know enough about its deployments to answer that question, so I can't answer that. Our agency doesn't use that.
Okay. Would it be something that you guys might want to investigate on and
as far as
see if that might be a better option than shock the mess out of somebody?
Well, the problem is the image of wrapping something around somebody's legs and having them fall to the ground without any way of stopping themselves becomes problematic too, if you think about that. The way that we're trained in taser technology is very different from something like that, because you're probably talking about a running away subject.
Not necessarily, just to stop them from doing whatever you guys be tasing people for.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, I will say that we don't just tase people, and we certainly try to, like I said, to use our mind and our words first. Sometimes we may use some sort of a grappling technique, but we ourselves are trained to stop, to use only as much force as is necessary, right? To stop them from hurting others or themselves, right? And to bring it to a conclusion so that everybody is safe and we move on.
Right.
I'm very confident that our training team has picked out the right tools and equipment to do that with, and I'm sure that they're always looking and reassessing things on a timely basis to make sure that we're always up on what we need to do and up on our training, and they certainly make corrections in training if some sort of training has been wrong in the past.
Right.
So, yeah.
Have you guys ever thought about, like I do First Amendment audits, that's what this is also. Have you thought about inviting one of the First Amendment auditors into your training to introduce, to your officers and say, hey, like you said, you want to talk first, but there's some out there that don't want to talk, and I think they need to be educated. Like, hey, we're not the enemy. We're just like the IRS. Sure. You can't stop the IRS from doing an audit, right? You know what I'm saying? So why stop an audit of we're taking videos of your cars, or we're taking videos of your lobby, or you know what I'm saying?
Well, like I said, when it comes to any kind of suspicion on anybody videoing or being around the equipment, it's more about being around the equipment. When it comes to the videography of equipment, you also have to look at a bigger picture, right?
Okay.
When it comes to things like, imagine like 9/11, right? They scoped a lot of stuff out prior to doing that. They scoped out how airport security worked. They scoped out those things, right? Doing exactly this.
Yeah.
So that in and of itself.
But not with a camera, though.
Yes. They also use cameras too to videotape how processes were going on, so they could show people who weren't there how that worked, right? So you have to understand there are suspicions related to that, to where they might think, well, why are they doing? Are they trying to figure out our movements and how we do things and that kind of stuff, right? And that comes from the paranoid side of policing in and of itself, because we're kind of suspect of anything, right? Because that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be looking for things that are out of the ordinary, right? And so clearly, if someone just simply showed up on your front porch with a camera videotaping you without any kind of, you know when they're going to be there, you would find that out of the ordinary, right?
Well, that's private property. But if they did it from the sidewalk, it's perfectly legal.
At any point, if someone simply
you would be curious, yeah. You'd be curious. You'd be like, "Hey, man, what you doing?"
It's kind of out of the ordinary. Would you agree? Right.
Right.
So it's the same thing. Now, in my case, I kind of figured out that you probably were a concerned citizen, wanting to kind of see what's going on. You had some questions. I'd be more than happy to answer those. I'll make sure that your needs were being met. That's what this was. So I'm more than happy to answer these. You know, others may respond differently. But,
right.
I know that many in our agency are of course wary of anything that might be in an area that people don't normally go, because the actual building and offices over on that side is kind of the back side out of the way where usually only officers are at. And so I could see where someone might be concerned. Did you have any problems like that today?
No, not today, because you was very cordial. You was very nice, and I appreciate that.
All right.
Some of the reactions I get, man, it's off the chain. It's crazy, but
well, I can understand the reaction.
But if somebody wanted to do something subterfuge, the technology they got now, spy glasses, the pen, the camera pen. There's so many ways that people can do it, and you guys wouldn't even know that they're videotaping.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is, like, everybody needs to do what you did. Hey, can I help you? What do you, is there something I can, help, move along? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
What can I do to help you instead of come out barking orders and stuff like that?
Well, to answer your earlier question about how someone might be able to see how the system works or maybe see what our training is like, I would reach out to our public information office and talk to our public information officer and see if there might be some sort of arrangement you can make to see one of our academies in operation and see how our officers are trained. I mean, our agency doesn't
see the way you're doing it, everybody's going to be alerted already, and they're going to be on their P's and Q's. They're going to know not to mess up. They're going to know not to come out of pocket. You do it this way, unannounced. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Not with your fence, because I wouldn't have crossed the barrier unless you invited me. But what I'm saying is, when I was downtown Oklahoma City, they immediately went to trespass. Okay. How can I be trespass on public property? I'm not committing a crime. I'm not being disorderly.
I understand.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, remember what I said earlier. A sudden appearance.
Right.
Unannounced. And they don't know you from anything.
True.
And you simply show up, that raises suspicions.
Right.
And the suspicions are, is this someone who intends to do harm with the information that they're gathering, right? Those kinds of things. So as with anything, it'd be like this. If you're going to want to see your friend's new apartment that they move into, right? You just show up and walk through the door?
No, I probably would not.
Right. You're going to let them know, right? And so they may want to clean up the house a little bit, puff up the pillows and stuff, right, to make their home look a little better, so you don't think they're a slob, right? It's the same kind of thing too. Of course, we're probably going to say, hey, you guys need to be on your P's and Q's, right? But the thing is, we as an agency would always want our guys to be on their P's and Q's, right? We always want them to cross the T's and dot the I's, and that's what we try to train them to do. Our guys are pretty real, and I don't think that you would have anything to worry about if you're able to view any of that training. I mean, the training is the training. They're not going to try and change the training to accommodate you. The training is the training, because we've also learned through our own experiences that your reaction will always go back to your training. So we try to train realistically and thoroughly. We don't try to cheat the system, So if you are interested in seeing that training or trying to learn more about that, just reach out to our public information office. Absolutely.
Would you agree that there's some jobs that you can't have bad apples? Like a pilot. No, you can't have bad apples on a pilot. You can't, he done crashed 2 planes, but he can still fly.
See, I'm not a pilot. I
know what I'm saying?
Speak on behalf of the air industry, but I do know this. No matter what role it is, from the Pope down, right, there's always a human factor, right? And humans are fallible, right?
Right.
Human beings make mistakes. For whatever reasons that may be, sometimes they make the choices to make bad decisions, the choices to do harm. History is filled with that, right?
Right.
So I try my best to not judge a person or a religion or a race or a profession based on the actions of a single person or a few. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so I try to look at a bigger picture. I try to do research and try to understand both sides and absolutely ask questions, right?
I like that.
And so that's what we try to do, and we encourage that too. And our sheriff has an open door policy. He would love to answer questions from our civilians, but go through our public information office just so that we can work it into the calendar.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
All right.
And absolutely, they'll talk to you. And you can email them at pio at okcounty.org.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah.
I appreciate you inviting me in, and it was a great conversation. Thank you very much. All right.
Alrighty.
You have a blessed day.
Too. Thank you.
All right. All right, there you go. Channel 12 fam, over here at the Sheriff's Station. Had a great conversation, great interaction, and I think that would do it for the Sheriff's Station over here off of MLK and 36th Street. And I'm out.
Nothing worse than a crooked ass cop supposed to serve and protect, except they not. They just run up on you quick like empty out they shit like. Plant the evidence in dim light. Now you in the matrix. Better hope you make it. Survive the shots, you gon' end up butt naked. Orange jumpsuit, county blues. Now you waiting. Whole lot of money they making, man they raking it. Big business, breaking bread. Politicians in bed with one another, having head-on collisions. Starts in the streets, ends in the courthouse. That's how they keep the majority in the poorhouse. Racist cops killing minorities who are all about trying to get clout. Need to be filtered out. You could read more inside chapter 12. Next time they run up on you, better quickly ask yourself, what you gon' do? What you gon' do when they run up on you? I don't know, y'all. What you gon' do? What you gon' do when they run up on you? Better figure it out. What you gon' do? What you gon' do when they run up on you? I don't know, y'all. What you gon' do? What you gon' do when they run up on you?
License and registration, better yet step out the car. Don't give a damn about your name, I don't care who you are. Assume a position, face down on the floor, so I can search you illegally. Then take what is yours, then take you downtown on some trumped up charges. Then brag about who the long arm of the law is. See, I can get away because I'm the man in blue. Nobody's gonna question me about what I do. Shut up and give me a reason. I got an itchy trigger finger open on all seasons. For anybody that steps out of line, you gonna do the time even if I committed the crime. A badge with no honor still goes a long way. I'm the reason why they say that crime doesn't pay. That's just how it is for the life of the blue. I'm a crooked ass cop, tell me what you gon' do.
What you gon' do? What you gon' do when they run up on you? I don't know, y'all. What you gon' do? What you gon' do when they run up on you? Better figure it out. What you gon' do? What you gon' do when they run up on you? The man in blue. What you gon' do? What you gon' do when they run up on you? Yeah.